Hello, I'm Peter Schaknat, Managing Director of Schaknat Electronic GmbH. Today we'll optimize a Scania S730. Quick overview of today's agenda. Here we have a Scania S730. You can see it here in the Italian style. We'll take a closer look at the vehicle together in a moment. Italian style means, as you can see, everything is more in chrome. So it's really done in a cool way. It's the first time I've had a vehicle like this here. This is a Scania S730 DC16 V8 engine with a 16.4 liter X-Pulse system. XPI engine with 3,500 cubic centimeters. Newton meters of torque. This is a TMS2 transmission, the strong gearbox as well. Internally, they've approved up to 4,500 Newton meters of torque. As I said, there's even about 1,000 Newton meters of headroom. Of course, you don't push it to the limit. The customer mainly drives the vehicle with a walking floor trailer. So, as I said, it's a company boss's vehicle. So, as mentioned, a boss's vehicle that's a bit more powerful in terms of performance. But he already said, after the first trips, that he feels like the vehicle is running at full open power. As you know from the old Streamline series, it was often the case with variable turbochargers, injectors, and all that the actual power output tended to be a bit lower than stated. That's usually the case with the 730s as well. That's why today we're going to look at the initial power output, optimize it again with the Schaknat App, optimize the engine and transmission as well, and then take a look at the resulting output power. We're measuring it at the rear axle, and it also has a test bench mode. We've secured it at the back for that. With our hydraulic cylinders, we always pull down with 4.5 to 5 tons. Because people have always asked, even in other videos, about traction with those high torque levels. That's the good thing about our test bench. We can apply the brakes quite strongly, almost up to the maximum torque. And at 200 to 300 Newton meters of counter torque, we start the measurement. So you really have almost no traction problems there. Of course, it's clear that if the tires are in poor condition and it is wet, then the roller just needs a few rotations until the water is completely gone, and then it works just as well. Let's take another quick look at the car. Let's take a quick look inside. You can see the car was made with a lot of love. LEDs everywhere, everything in blue and white. The steering wheel is painted, so it's really done up in a crazy way. It's got a sound system inside with real bass. You can see everything up here. Painted, really a beautiful car. You have to be careful, especially with your shoes. I'm really excited to measure the car. Now let's take a look at the car from the front. This is a next generation model, S generation. This is a great example of that typical Italian style. For example, everything up top is finished in chrome. You have the deep sun visor and of course the V8 badge. It's all really done in a very cool way. You know the Holland style, most of the time it's painted. I actually think it's pretty stylish. I can meet the Italian truckers. When you see the trucks there, they're really done up too. You can see that back here. Everything is stainless steel, really nicely done. Now we're heading over to the test stand to warm up the brakes again for a moment. You can see back here, we've now strapped it down so it's held securely at the rear. And then I'd say, let's start with the initial measurement. We've now done the initial measurement. Let's take a quick look at it together now. The car was really easy to measure. There was hardly any vibration from the tires either, so it was great. You can see it up here. Let's take another look at it together. Down here we have the torque curve, and up here we can see the peak power. The truck is supposed to have originally 3,500 Newton meters. So as I said, with the test bench tolerance, we're right there. We measured 3,500 Newton meters, so that's really the factory torque. But only 692 or 693 horsepower. That also matches what the customer told me. Let's take another look at the torque. Normally we have the maximum torque at around 1,000 to 1,300 RPM. And the customer just said that down low, it's pretty revvy, it just doesn't get going at all. And that could also be the case. As you can see here, it might have something to do with the variable turbine vane adjustment of the turbocharger, that it's not switching over quickly enough at low revs. And you can always see things like that very clearly on the test bench. You can clearly see from the torque build-up that it revs up a lot and only holds its maximum for a short time, let's say from 1100 to 1300 RPM, and then it already starts dropping off again at higher revs. We've also made it very clear that fuel consumption is a top priority for us. We're now going to flash it with the app so we can get the car to around 830 to 850 horsepower. And I would say, in terms of torque, with the transmission optimization, it's 350 to 400 Newton meters. So I would say the perfect value for the big engines to really save fuel is always between 300 and 400 Newton meters of torque. I would never go above that. I think if I were to say now I had a 520 here, I would have a bit more headroom in terms of torque, but the 730 is actually already the strongest in the series. The engine series goes 520, 580, 730 in terms of base power. And of course, a truck like this is supposed to last 1,000,000 kilometers easily, so obviously we don't want to overdo it. Well, of course, it's important to always point out that the torque at low revs is what's crucial. That way, the trucks can upshift early, which naturally makes them more fuel efficient. As I already mentioned, the customer complained that it doesn't pull at the bottom end, and then the vehicles aren't fuel efficient either. But we'll get that sorted out now or get it under control. If during the initial measurement we find that it really does show these symptoms, we'll basically go back, read out the values again, and maybe do a pressure test. The point is to compare the target and actual values to see if it builds up boost pressure in time. But for now, let's take a look at the base software and flash it. We're now flashing the Acme with our Schaknat app. It's always the same principle. Turn on the ignition, remove the adapter, and then open the OBT connector down here, as you can see. Attach the adapter, then please wait below until the OBT dongle has turned blue. Then you can go ahead and take out your phone and flash the truck. Next, we start the app, select Scania. Then you can open the adapter settings and connect it. Then the application will automatically search for the truck again. It is important that you are able to turn on the ignition. Now you can see that you can already read out all of the information. Now we will go into the engine control unit here. I've already stored 2 data sets. One is the original eco program and the other is the power program. Now we're going to flash the eco optimization onto the engine control unit. Again, just as usual. We've changed that again in the app. When you press it, the app will ask again if you really want to execute it now. You see, then you just press it. Yep, we want to execute it. And then it already starts flashing. That takes about 2 minutes on the Scania. After that, we'll do the transmission. We've now added that as well. So we'll set the transmission to Eco 2. And as I said, there are enough videos about this on YouTube or online, so you can also watch the explanatory videos there. Exactly, and then I'd say we'll see each other again at the baseline measurement. We've now done the baseline measurement. We've now done all the measurements again in 10th gear, gear 11th gear. So you could do 10th gear, 11th gear. You can see again that the torque differs by 200 Newton meters. In some places, it's measured down to 300 Newton meters. 11th gear, direct gear, engine to transmission. Depending on whether it's an overdrive transmission or a standard transmission, it's different. It can be 1 gear higher. You have to check, but with the TMS2, it's the 11th gear. Now let's take another look at the measurement. As you can see down here, we have the torque value again. Here is the horsepower axis. Here we have the RPM axis again. And finally, here we have the torque axis once again. We said we want to save fuel and fix this problem from the ground up. You can see we now have an output of 800 MPS and just under 3,800 Newton meters of torque. You can see down here, as we mentioned before, with the VTG adjustment. So we've recalibrated the VTG again. You can see below, it now revs up completely differently. We reach maximum torque much earlier now. Combined with the transmission optimization, this is exactly what saves drivetrain wear because it can shift up much earlier. You can also see here, at peak torque, we have 300 Newton meters more. That's in this area here. It holds the maximum torque for an impressively long time, and you can see the curve is also very smooth. It maintains its maximum torque for an impressively long time, and that's exactly what we want. Even when you're really heading into the mountains with heavy loads and have to downshift, it still digs in and you don't have to shift as much. As I said, every gear change causes some wear, consumes a certain amount of fuel, and we want to make absolutely sure the trucks stay in the highest gear as long as possible. And as I said, before the curve, it sets in really smoothly, so it looks perfect. The customer also has the option to flash the power variant. I'd say it's a solid 50 horsepower stronger. Clearly, 800 horsepower, walking floor, 3,800 Newton meters. That's more than enough to get up the mountains. I'm very satisfied with the result. Now I'll parameterize the transmission for the customer, take it for a test drive, and then hand the vehicle over. This concludes our video on engine and transmission optimization on the Scania S730. As I said, you can see for yourselves, it was really a lot of fun. The measurements turned out really awesome. The initial output was also great. The customer will also get the app from me now because, as we already said, with the adapter, everything is always included as standard. I've given him the training. Now we also have the Scania Hugo Boss air fresheners for our customers. We're going to have them made for the other brands as well. That's why I said feel free to send us photos of your trucks, because we always make sure to get permission for nice trucks so we can make the air fresheners in connection with them as well. As I said, they also smell really good. He's happy too. I'll put one in his truck now. As mentioned, if you're interested in this topic, feel free to check out our website at www.schaknat.de. You're also welcome to call us or send us an email. You can also get impressions of the measurements and the individual trucks on YouTube. As I said, feel free to check it out and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We always appreciate it. You're also welcome to comment under the post about what you like, what we could do better, or what we could do worse. Just go ahead and write it below. Thank you very much for watching. See you next time. Bye.